Okay, what we're going to look at now is a feature in After Effects called rotoscoping. So traditionally, rotoscoping was a way of capturing motion. It was pioneered by the folk at Disney. And what they would do is they would capture animation, they would capture motion of an actor running or dancing. And then they would take that animation, that motion, and animate over the motion so that their characters would dance or move convincingly. Rotoscoping in After Effects is a little bit different. It's more of just another way to knock a figure out of the background. So if you want to knock a figure out of the background and you plan ahead, you would make a green screen. In this case, what you're doing is you're making a selection around a figure and you're rotoscoping or knocking the figure out of the background by carefully delineating that character or figure from the background using a rotoscope brush. Let's look at how it works. So here's our exercise when it's finished. And what we've got here is a shark on land. And he's going to be moving through the water. And that's our rotoscoping, okay? And so after you knock, in this case, after you knock this character out of the background, you can do anything you want with it. So he could be against a flat color. He could be against a background. Or I can take the background of the original picture and modify its color and make it where the background is a different color than the foreground. So let's dive in and take a look. We're going to start from scratch. I'm going to save and close this. Start a new project. And you'll have a folder called rotoscoping with all of these resources in it, and you'll open and follow along with me as I do the exercise. So first I'm going to start with the shark and the background. Click import. And I'm going to create a composition based on the shark's data by grabbing and dragging it to the composition window. Now, what we want to do is jump into the rotoscope application. So what I need to do is double click on the artwork here, and that will jump me over from the composition to a layer with the artwork. So here's my composition, here's my layer. Now I'm in a position where I can work directly on this footage. So up on my timeline, across my toolbar is a roto brush tool. I want to select that roto brush tool. When I select the roto brush tool, I get this little green icon. I want to make sure I'm starting on the first frame. And that little green symbol is my brush. I can change the size of the brush by holding down Command and Option and dragging on the Mac, or Control and Alt on the PC. And what I want to do is do an outline of the critter. And we're fortunate, this is actually going to work really pretty well. And there's lots of times you have to spend a lot of time cleaning up that rotoscope. So there's my rotoscope. So it's knocked that character out. I'm going to grab my magnifying glass. I'm going to zoom in. And you'll see that it's not quite up in that corner there. Let me zoom out a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to push the rotoscope brush into that area. So I'm going to grab that rotoscope brush. But if I hold down Alt, it gives me the minus symbol, and I can kind of push into there and clean that up. And I can push back out with the regular brush. So now I'm going to step forward using, I can use either the page up and page down keys. So I'm going to tap the page down key and step through my rotoscope. And if it fails, I'll have to stop and clean it up. So there's another thing I want to show you, this little bar here. I want to grab that little bar and drag that. And what that does is it increases the number of frames that the rotoscope is looking at as it makes its calculations. Generally what you're going to do at this step is just stage or step through it step by step. There is a little preview button over here, and I can hit that preview button and step through it. But it tends to get a little squirrely if you do that. So I'm going to just step forward through this, and we're getting pretty good tracking here. We're fortunate. We're getting pretty good tracking. And it's propagating through here nicely. And we're fortunate. Lots of times you spend a lot of time cleaning up those rotoscopes. And it depends on how well the foreground is knocked out from the background. So I'm just going to keep stepping through this. All right. And it looks like we're doing pretty good here. It's holding that pretty good. I'm going to hit the preview button up here. Just let it crank through here. All right. So that's our, now if we go back to our composition, you'll see that it's not the shark out of the background. So now we can drop anything we want behind it. Let's look at some of the options here for our roto brush. One, I can manipulate or edit the feather, the contrast. I can push the selection in or out, or if there's something going on with the edge, I can introduce or erode the amount of chatter. We're pretty good here. We're pretty lucky here. I'm going to go back to our project and grab that background and drop it underneath the shark. And that looks pretty good. We've got a pretty good knockout here. We got fortunate, all right? Now I can adjust the edges if I go back into the effect controls and select the shark. Perhaps I can feather the edge, make it a little smoother on the edge. Right? And I can adjust to shift the edge of the selection. So that's how we create that knockout. So let's look at some of the other things that you can do. One, I can knock it out against a solid background. So if I tap Control Y, it's going to bring up a solid. I make the solid any color I want. Click OK. And then drag that underneath the shark, and now the shark's up against the solid. I could drop in another piece of video and drop the shark in against another piece of video. Or I'm going to go back, I'm going to turn off the bottom layers. I'm going to grab the shark layer, and I'm going to copy it, Control D. And I'm going to turn off the roto brush by clicking up here and deleting it, so I'm back to the original background. And I'm going to change the color of the background. So if I go to my default, I want to go to my effects and presets, and I'll type in, say, hue, saturation, and drag that and drop that on there and change the color of this file, and then drag that underneath the shark, and now the shark's swimming against green water. So I can, after I knock that critter out, I can do anything I want with it. I'm going to turn that off and put him back against the solid background. Now, to make this more convincing, I'm going to make sure we're on the layer with the shark. I'm going to delete this, and I want to apply a couple of adjustments. First, I'm going to go over to my effects and presets and type in curves. So curves are the same curves you see in Photoshop. And I'm going to drag that and drop that onto my fish. And then I'm going to adjust the channel so that it's a little bit more convincing. I'm going to go into the red and pick the red up a little bit. Take some of the red out. Okay. There's the blue. I'll leave the blue alone. I'm going to go in and grab hue saturation, drag that and drop that on, and lower the saturation. I'm going to go in and add a little bit of brightness and contrast. So I'm just typing in what I need. Drag that on there. And I'm going to lower the brightness. Just the saturation. It's a little bit more convincing. Now I'll play through my animation. And so what we did here was we looked at the rotoscope tool, looked at how to apply the rotoscope tool, take something out of the background and replace it with something else.